Okay, all right. We are calling our meeting to order. But everyone for roll call can state your first and last name. Laurelyn Bockelman,
Joe Burke,
Aaron McConnell,
Jesse Roper.
Sarah Brown.
Robert Slossman.
John, do we have you?
He said he may be a touch late.
I'm here.
Okay,
John Evans.
Yes.
and then of course we have Eric Henschel with Parks and Rec Operations Supervisor and Billy Cooksey, Manager of Parks and Rec Department. And we have Dennis with us tonight from the American Legion. All right, do we have any public? Is there any public on for non-agenda? Okay, awesome. Okay, minutes. Did anybody have any notes for the minutes? Were we editing the timer? Were we good? Okay.
You want to state that? Yep.
Guys, I can't remember. I'm sorry, that was such a late night. I can't remember if we got done at 8:31 or 9:31.
It was 8:30.
Yeah.
8:31. I think that's the only change to the minutes that I had. Do you guys have anything?
Motion to approve the minutes
With the amendment.
with the amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Okay, great. Minutes are approved for November 13th, 2024, with the change of when the meeting time ended from 9:31 to 8:31. Jumping right into action items, jumping into the memorial.
Yeah, I just put that on there because we always have that on there. Discussion open for anybody that wants to talk about it. There aren't a ton of updates as far as any physical space changes right now. I think in more, as you've spoken about, either the design phase or more importantly, the fundraising phase. Any updates that you guys want to give on what had happened since last meeting till now?
We do not have fundraising updates. We do not have 501c3 updates. We don't have any. Nothing has happened
Yeah.
since then, so.
Yeah, and that's fine.
The check from OCB came to the
Yes,
town.
yep, sorry, I should have said that,
Oh,
very true. Yes, the
that's
town
good.
did get delivered the check from
Oh, good.
OCB.
Okay.
And that is put directly into that fund only to be used for community park, Veterans Memorial funding.
What
I
was
think-
the total for that? What do we end up with?
1,600.
$1,683, if I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's a
Thank
big
you.
swing in one night.
It shows you what kind of support there is in the community. If when we get the word out and we continue to push that and have those conversations, I think. The next piece, I know that 501c3 is a big piece of that, but. In order to start to put together those fundraising tiers that we talked about, we really need to start to dial in pricing on certain portions of the memorial. And so I think until we can't really do anything fundraising wise, except continue to talk about it and share about it. I do think it would be ideal to have some sort of brochure put together that looks professional, that really displays what we're working towards, and having a way to, put that at businesses. Cause I think a lot of businesses kept those big poster boards, but like Laurelyn said, they're big. And so if we can get those out into the community, I'd like to think at some point about the possibility of doing a mailing around it and just get another piece of information in our community's hands, because we know how hard it is to get information to our community. And maybe that means sending something out in the water bill if people will open that and look at it. But I'd like to see us put some organized effort behind that. That's what I think are our next pieces.
So as far as the town portion to support that, would you look for us to make that brochure with guidance?
I
Okay,
mean, if
with information already made, just kind of put it into something and then bring it back to PROST, or at least get it out in an email and get verification that that's what we want to see. It'll be
I think
PDF
so.
version, but then we can make it into something that the
Mhm.
businesses can have or we can hand out
Yeah,
at events? Okay,
yeah.
I think too,
Exactly.
you know, if it's something the town can't to do with the brochure, we do have people, we have volunteers in the community, specifically in graphic design, who would be more than happy to work on something like that too.
I would think that's something that we could take
Okay.
on.
Okay.
I'll put that on my action item notes and then I'll follow up for sure,
Okay.
but
Perfect. Do we think that with the brochure, if we're gonna put the time and energy into doing that, that we want to try and have our fundraising tiers put together before that? My only concern is if we put out the brochure, you know, there should be some, I think, some actionable item or motivation behind it, not just with information, but also like, hey, look, this is what we're trying to raise money for. So whether or not we talk about this as the general fund, which will help fund these sorts of things. Or we actually sit down and break down what those fundraising tiers, big tiers are gonna look like.
yeah, and as general fund, you mean the fund for the community park fund? So
Well,
when you say general fund, just making sure that we
Sorry,
put this
yep.
out, general fund isn't the town's general
No.
fund.
no, because
Right.
remember when we talked about our fundraising tiers, that some
Absolutely.
of them
I
would be
just want to
towards,
clarify.
yep, towards very specific items like concrete.
Yes,
Flagpoles.
Yep.
Lighting, that then we also had kind of just a general fundraising tier
Yep.
that was, this is gonna help cover possibly the flowers or, you know, benches or whatever it might be.
yep,
That then we have that opportunity for people to be like, well, I can't do more than like $20 right now, but I'm more than happy to put
to
$20.
push that into it, right?
And then we have those businesses then that we're pinpointing and some of our big buck folks that we can look at getting that
Right.
information to about, you know, benches, concrete.
Yep,
Does that
and
make sense?
and that'll give us a way in my mind too, when we do events such as raise over
Mhm.
$1,600.
Mhm.
Just talking about that going into the general fundraising pool
Mhm.
rather than,
think
you know,
some
and
specifics.
in that maybe future ones, however. You wanna, you know,
Mhm.
tier, however we tier that, that'll be a kind of a different mindset of gaining those fundings
Mhm.
rather than just out in the public, $5 to $10 at events.
Right,
Okay,
right.
I have a couple points. One, did we settle on a name?
Hmm.
Okay, right, so obviously we need to do that. How does this board feel? Cause I feel like, you know, we're really trying to get the committees and then having the committees come in and just give a quick report. Is everybody okay if the committee sets up we'll get the kind of the levels going? And then how do we feel about as a group about the naming? Do we want to have the contest? Do you want the committee to name it? Do you want? How did we want to move forward? I'm sorry, I don't remember how we kind of landed.
I don't think we did. I think that it's been an ongoing kind of conversation. I mean, I'd love the community feedback. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to go about gathering that information. I would be tempted first to take it to kind of the subcommittee for the
Just
No.
remember all the names that came through for
Yeah.
the parks.
Parky Park.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and that's, I think that if we have kind of that subcommittee that's really willing to put some time and energy into it of people that I've already kind of reached
Yeah.
out to. Especially that has a group of veterans involved in it,
Yeah.
that it would be worth running that name through that group and seeing what we come up with
What if we
before we.
What if we put that on our agenda, since we have next month, we'll do. It's already part of this, it's building the outline, but what if we put that on our agenda? To kind of figure that out, because we're not really probably gonna put anything out for a name before that meeting.
Right.
What if we come to some sort of a conclusion on how we're gonna do that, but
Mhm.
really sit down and talk as a whole group at that meeting?
Yeah,
And spend some significant time on it there.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
a
good with
thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good time too, to dive into those like the fundraising tiers, like if we,
100%.
that, we should put
We'll
up
put that on there.
maybe
Yeah,
2 hours aside of that day. If we have, I don't know if we'll have that much time for it, maybe even an hour.
Has the name,
Maybe I kind of feel like maybe like we should, as a committee, bring that right to like, okay, here's our top 5.
Yeah,
Decide.
yeah,
Here's our tiers. Do
Yeah.
you like it? You know, like, at that point, we could already have had, you know, a committee meeting, kind of get it down, maybe get some feedback back, so it's more of a reporting. I feel like sometimes we have so much to talk about that I do worry. But is that okay?
that was just a suggestion. You guys, whatever you
I
want.
was just trying to keep it streamlined.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, Laura.
well, my question was, has the name varied much. Where were we? I don't even remember what we were called before. Wellington Veterans Memorial Plaza, something like that.
WCP,
Yep,
Wasn't there an
Yeah.
issue with
Veterans Memorial
the other one
Plaza,
in
the
Fort
plaza,
Collins?
the plaza, I think, was the thing that came up as far as controversial in the northern Colorado area, because City of Fort Collins
Just
already
Veterans
has the
Plaza in
Veterans
general.
Plaza in
They have
Spring Canyon
plaza.
Community Park.
Okay,
They have a Veterans Plaza specifically.
they have a plaza,
Mhm.
okay.
so we're trying to come up with some other words.
So am I getting this right? Would you like a subcommittee prior to that meeting to come up with 5 names, and then at that meeting, we can all discuss in a very short amount of time?
Mhm.
I think
Of those
so.
5, okay, that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
up to you, I just wanna make sure that we're on the same page with how we
I
move
think
forward with
so.
this.
Mhm.
Right, like, cause we're trying to have the committees do the work and then come back and be like, okay, guys, what do you think,
That was
right?
kind of my vision,
Okay.
just having.
Is that
doing
okay?
that Within,
Yep,
Then we don't run into the long meetings anymore and we keep things moving and, yeah. I think we have some really great ideas and then we could, I don't know, put them out to the,
Mhm.
do some community involvement, or you can talk to, some of the subcommittee that you have and,
Right,
and then we just bring it back and like, here's top 5, what do you think?
sounds good.
I do have a meeting next. I believe it's next Thursday, the 19th. And, sorry, let me get there. It's interested in the project in general, just from a kickstart. It is with,
It's gonna be tough coming up for another word for plaza.
Mhm.
So,
Just
yeah.
on the thesaurus, I'm like,
It's
ooh,
with-
there's not a whole lot of
Elevations Credit Union.
better.
They reached out and
Yeah.
just wanted to understand more about the project. I think
Oh, that's awesome.
they had come to, yep, you
Yep.
had met with them
Let's bring that up.
at. We wanna
Yeah.
talk about it?
No, go ahead. I was at Deppen.
Yeah, Deppen.
Yep.
And they went to a planning commission meeting. Didn't know that it was different than PROST or whatever, because they were just trying to figure out, so they had talked to Aaron and then they got a hold of Cody Bird. And then Cody put information to me, and I already had some communications with Tiffany, but we decided on next Thursday evening, so we're just gonna sit down, I'm just gonna go over the project with them. I don't know if anybody wants to be in that meeting with me, it's like Thursday at 6 o'clock.
I won't be around, otherwise I would.
I'll be in.
Yeah, and I think we're just gonna do it at OCB, and I think it's just like an open-ended, like. What the community is doing here, and maybe support, maybe not, it's more just they're interested in the project, so.
Yeah, he was a veteran.
Next
Next
Thursday,
Thursday.
yeah, the night, yep,
He's a veteran?
He was a veteran that I talked to. Did you meet him? Were you there yet?
I don't think so.
I can probably make it.
But yeah, they've got a whole division that works with community outreach like this, and said,
Love that.
very interested.
Hmm.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Mhm. So I can't next Thursday, I'll be in Michigan, so.
Think we could make it work. I think we could.
Yeah, I can meet you there.
that'd be good support from this group. So volunteer board, town, local business, 3 of us, give or take, okay. Anything more? Oh, sorry.
No, I don't think so.
Your meeting, not mine.
No. Good boss.
Just to confirm, the subcommittees that are going to go out and come back, which subcommittees are those? And I'm just. clarification.
I think as we go, I think we're gonna identify more, right? So working on the plaza, my guess is, Billy, you and I had a whole conversation about this. What else did we have? Do you remember off the top of your head?
There are other notes, I think, probably if you two really just wanna get together and then.
We
I don't know.
have our-
I
I
don't wanna
already
say-
have the
Yeah.
subcommittee kind of informally put
Okay.
together, so.
Okay.
that's
And
okay.
talk about naming, but I
Yeah.
think with naming too, at least keeping everybody in the loop, so what, what we're talking
Oh, yeah.
about, so that we have an understanding. Keeping me in the loop so I can put it on the agenda for our full retreat meeting.
Okay,
And then coming to present with the five.
yeah, perfect, okay,
Five,
Thank you. Or however many.
you're
Yeah.
right.
I mean, if it's three, then
Yeah,
three, I think that's also okay.
Whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would say no more than five.
Yeah, no. No. But yeah, people like, you know, a grant committee, right? You know, who's ever, you know, with Joe, he
Or
can go.
person.
yeah,
Right, but the idea is with being such an active board and excitement in the community, that we would have more committees, right? We'd have volunteers
Mhm.
that are excited to be part of things that can help out. So, you know, if Joe's meeting with some people for grants, maybe they have ideas, you know, then he can just report back in instead of maybe us having a half-hour grant conversation, right? It would just be, here's what I found.
Yeah.
And they're viable. And then we can move on, right? You know,
thank you. I was just being very specific about the naming and which subcommittees we wanted to come back and bring information to.
Oh.
So I completely agree about the remaining, yeah, that's fine, Sarah and I can bring ideas back.
yeah. Just for efficiency and then to keep
Yeah.
everything moving and. Tonight's a little bit easier, but sometimes when we have the speakers and stuff, it goes so long and I was just, yeah.
No,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense,
Mhm.
yeah.
So,
Good.
yeah, so you two, okay, heading that up, and anybody else wanna be involved in that prior
Absolutely.
to
Yeah,
bringing it
obviously.
back to PROST, or are we
Mhm.
good with that?
I'm excited about, I think there's people ready to work on it for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, just writing some notes.
Great. So we're gonna bring names, we're gonna bring some different levels. I'm really excited. A lot of the
You guys
other,
stuck on it, so you guys
all the towns have
got too many.
their different levels on websites. So I know when we were Googling and kind of looking at the structure and spacing and stuff, a lot of the other places have ideas on setting up those levels, so
Okay,
I think we could look at a bunch of different municipalities and see how they did it and go from there. Are we good to move on to budget?
Gonna roll down. Good like that. I don't know how much or if anybody had been able to or wanting to dive into what the budget was, not necessarily just for parks, but also for the town. Nor how much everybody was invested right now. I know we have some new members, and we have other things kind of going on that we're all tackling as far as new positions and all that, and especially with the projects that everybody's working on. But I just wanted to put this up here because this is the park fund approved 2025 budget, and if anybody had questions on how we get funded, why we're funded the way we are, kind of what our operational or capital funding is in the department, and kind of where you all fit in that process, I thought it a good time since the budget just got approved and should be officially published sometime in the next few weeks, as it has to be for state legal purposes. If you, really, I just wanted to kind of, any questions, or if you want me to explain anything, I can kind of hit some high points. And we did budget presentations with the board multiple different times, Board of Trustees, multiple different times, as every department does before it gets approved, and went back and kind of cut things out a couple different times as per requests from the Board of Trustees. I mean, the biggest thing that we look at as far as parks, and really the parks fund itself is parks and recreation. There are two different groups in there, but it all comes out of one basic area that we maintain. So there's the park fund, or the fund balance, and recreation comes out of that as well. some of the larger ideas of what a parks fund is that generally parks come out of the general fund. You don't get a lot of revenue from parks specifically. So all of our revenue comes from taxes. There's percentage tax that's split between streets and a public works portion, and then a parks and rec portion, so parks portion. We split that. That's just Wellington. And then we also get Larimer County funds for an open space tax that all municipalities get based on size. And then there's also a couple variable little things here and there that we have. The biggest thing that we have as far as expenditures still is our debt service to Wellington Community Park. But next year is the last year that will be on. It's 269,460. Or 269,500 is what we're gonna spend next year to end that debt service. So almost give or take $300,000 over the last few years. So one of my goals with our finance director was to kind of, I won't say look past that 300,000, but that is a debt service and it is ending, which is amazing for our overall park fund. But to say, how can we get closer to breaking even within revenues and expenditures if that 300,000 isn't there? We know it's gonna be there next year, but 2026 and forward, how can we make that in just the operational side? I should have said that early. This is just like all operational with the park fund. How that comes out. So basically taking a few line items and reducing them throughout the budget. I took off about $70,000 a year that we have operationally between parks and recreation. But if you go down a little bit, Eric, you can see that over the last few years, so there's the 2024 budget and then what we estimated 2024, keep going all the way down. And then the 2025 budget, right? So that for right there at the bottom column there, the second row over is what our budget was, but what our projected is, this is just the parks side, recreation is a little further down. So we were spending almost 100,000, projected to spend $100,000 of what we budgeted. And then on top of that, to get that number that we're kind of that deficit that we had, I cut $70,000 more out of that budget. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't spend up to what is budgeted, which is 870,000. So it's more next year, and that's just because of certain things like benefits going up in the town. So all this is all of employees, all their salaries, all their benefits, as well as every single line item. And you can read through those and see what, you know, when we pay for something, what we pull, what general code it comes out of. So the goal was to reduce that. So that $870,000 in the parks fund was probably more like 920,000. So I slashed some of that. Recreation's the same where it was higher next year, but I took some of that out so that the park fund isn't taking those bigger hits every year, knowing that next year, $300,000 is gonna be the last time we take that. So the only way that we're thinking about increasing revenues is, you know, in the park fund is either sponsorships or recreation fees. And then really just trying to balance that operational budget to make sure that we're not expending more than we're actually utilizing and bringing in. So that's a lot. Does that make sense? So the recreation portion supplements that fund because we do take recreation fees in. And we do have some in parks. There's a little bit in parks that we take in use fees for any tournaments that go on at WCP or library, anybody that rents a shelter. If they have events in town and they pay to use Centennial Park or put up the fence for whatever reason, we do cover some of those fees within that park fund. But parks in general don't make money, right? So those numbers come out of that taxes, and then if we have any more, it comes out of the general fund from the town.
Okay.
So we're trying to balance that out. Maybe bring recreation a little bit more, so that helps supplement some of that, because recreation. We're not a special district, we're not a special fund, so we don't have to break even. We try to keep our recreation costs a little bit lower, because that's what the directive is from the board. Like, we want people to recreate in our town. We want them to participate in recreation. We could try to break even in recreation, and then everything that we're getting in tax revenue goes directly towards parks.
Mhm.
But that's not what the directive is we want people to come in. So we still want to kind of maybe kick that up a little bit, but not to overprice people. We're one of the lowest recreation fees, the lowest recreation fees in northern Colorado specifically, and we want to keep it that way because we want people to be involved and we don't want to price them out. That is directive that I've talked with directly to the board, and they say, yeah, please do that, but we still have to have some cost recovery there, bring money into our park.
I have a couple of questions. This is helpful though. Thank you
Yeah.
for going through it. The minor park improvements, the 65,000 in
Yep.
2025. Is that money already allocated to specific projects or is
In
that,
2025, no,
yeah? So
not
that's,
necessarily. Minor park improvements isn't. We will use some of that
yeah,
operationally, but that was the one that it used to be, I believe, 35,000, and last year we went to the board and got that kicked up, and then they said, where can you slash? So that was one that was, that we talked about, I talked about with the board, like, we got it up, let's bring it back down a little bit, because that went, it almost doubled, but that was more this group, saying, hey, we would love to be able to go identify things that aren't necessarily, now we'll have the master plan, but even outside the master plan to say, hey, do we have $6,000 to do the underpass lights at I-25, which we did this year. And you
Yeah.
can see, things that you guys go see in the parks, which is why you all have your own parks, and say, do we fund this? There's the skate park that we fund. When Robert comes and says, hey, the skate, our group thinks we need this, and I say, okay, we're putting money for safety this way, so we come to that kind of agreement with some of that money. That's where your recommendation piece on funding
That's
comes
great.
in. So yes, none of that
Okay.
is necessarily earmarked. I will say every year we probably need, just for the random things that aren't, so there's another line in there, general R&M, and that's more like if a swing breaks, we have extra swings, but then we need to replace those extra swings. We don't just get one, we get 5 when 5 need replaced. So it's not just like a chunk, right? Or we get a bunch of chain for the swings all at the same time, so we get a bulk price. So
okay,
that's what that's for. Minor park improvements is more for like, hey, a light fell, or we do want to add fence here or there, and it's identified either by myself or by this group.
Or a big piece of equipment needs replacing.
Yes.
Like those rockers at WCP that we're
Yeah.
trying to get. with
Got
the
it.
whatnot.
okay, that's helpful.
Yep.
Things like the garden that is being proposed, would
Yep.
supplies come out of that?
So
line item?
how we would look at that is for 1 year, yes, and we do it similar in recreation. In recreation, there is recreation supplies and, sorry, what's the line item? I can't think of it. 5151.
Rec program supplies.
Yeah, so rec programming supplies, and also maybe in the parks, it would be similar to this, where if we're looking to do something new within a year, we would budget it towards one of the GLs we already have.
Okay,
And then in the next year, I would present it to the board and say, can we have a new GL? This was a successful program. This is what we spent in year 1. This is what we're expecting to spend in year 2.
Mhm.
And they will say yes or no, such as anything new here, senior programming and recreation.
right.
Brand new, we took it to them. We spent a little bit of money here and there to try to get things going. We did it with graffiti remover. That wasn't a GL, but we tagged it to something else in parks and then said, hey, we need $2,000 so we can start tracking where vandalism and graffiti is, things like
That
that.
makes
But we'll
sense.
pull it out of something else and then make it something new if it's viable.
Got it.
Horticulture, we did that last year because we want to replace a new bed every year. So we pulled it out of a different fund. The next year I say I need $5,000 to redo beds.
And it becomes its own.
Yeah, whether I ask for $5,000 more or reduce another budget by $5,000, it's just to track exactly what we're doing
Yeah.
specific to that event
Okay,
or that program.
Okay, I like that.
So,
That's true.
and those are recommendations, you know. Would love to hear from this group.
Yeah,
No, it sounds very responsible.
That's what we're trying to do. I mean, that's the
mm.
ultimate goal.
my only other question is about, I feel like I'm, or whatever, the gym rental, is that for Boys and Girls Club?
No, that is for PSD.
Oh,
Mostly, we
PSD,
did
okay.
start,
Also can be Bridget Boys and Girls Club. as we
yeah,
did
so,
this year.
so this year we have a really fantastic relationship and agreement with the Boys and Girls Club. Let me just, if they're on the meeting, let me shout out to them. They're amazing. Their director has been fantastic. Their whole team is great. Support from the top to the bottom with helping us do programming. We try to support them in any way we can. I hate to say it's a partnership. I hope they feel that way because we try to give back, but they do offer space for us and we try to do whatever we can to help them back. But before this year, they basically we had an agreement that we'd use for indoor pickleball,
Mhm.
but we started to do the indoor basketball and we said, like, we're not paying anything, we know there's lights, we know you guys do cleaning, so we do have an agreement for a little bit of gym rental from them.
That's good. Okay.
But most of that goes towards renting Rice and Ice Stone
Got it.
North and South for practices and games. But it is space rental, so if there's other space we want to pursue to rent for programming, we have that in the budget, and if that needs to go up as we expand programmings, it's all things that we can consider and talk about.
Awesome, okay, thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for going through that.
Yeah. I can't even say huge shout out to Boys and Girls Club.
They're pretty
They're
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah. And then just, if you wanna roll through that, one last thing, I just did put on keep going, our capital improvement. I know it's really small on here. It's really hard to take the formatting and make it any bigger, but that is, basically, next year on our capital, we new truck, which is needed, and then, the Parks and Rec master plan, as well as the community center feasibility study, and that's it.
It's on there.
Yep, cool. Approved, going through the process. Eric's been deep diving into trucks. I think we're gonna try to get the truck purchase started here very soon. And then we'll talk about the master plan, but there's not much on the capital outlay, so we will be doing a 5 and possibly a 10-year capital outlay. But the master plan will help us, the master plan and also our cost recovery model for parks, so our infrastructure replacement plan that we're doing internally. Both of those put together will help us determine what our 5 to 10-year CIP outlay is. All the other town departments have a much more laid out and robust CIP, but us going through the master plan, it was kind of just like we can just move one thing over until we know what needs to go, and then, you know, along with talking about increasing impact fees, as Cody came in and talked about how that works in the process, all of that stuff will kind of come together for us to do the 5-year CIP outlay,
Okay.
which you guys are heavily involved in. Both of them.
Be really cool. The Parks Board has talked for a long time about, you know, what are the parks that we want to improve. Viewpoint, it's exciting to see it in writing, has been right, needing some love for a while with the new, new everything. So, right? So really excited to see that on there. And then at some point, you know, we've also talked about the love that Centennial is gonna need. So as you guys kind of get to that point, as we get to that point, talking about the 10-year when Billy's like, let's lay out some more stuff. That's some of the things we've been talking about was replacing parks with poured in place surfacing. After hearing from Kevin, right, like if we could get pour in place surfacing over at Park Meadows, that would be super cool. How do you want all those types of feedback? Like, what's the best way to say, here's all of our thoughts? Or
Well, I think we need to continue expanding the always want to call it the wish list, just because that's what it always was, the
Priority.
priorities, PROST priorities list, and putting things on there that we see, and then we can cross-reference and identify what the master plan comes out with. The master plan really is gonna, it's gonna dictate what we need to pursue, and then it's gonna be up to this group to go out, identify those things and say what the priorities are and how we put them through the list over the next 5-10 years. And I will say this, even though most of this group won't be here in 10 years, I would assume, what we do now with the new master plan will set forth an easier pathway for people to come in and sit down in these seats and say, okay, how do we move forward, or what projects can we work on that are outside of that? Because it's like, well, we already know we're doing this, this, and this next year. It's on the CIP, it's in the master plan. The community engagement has been there. We know we're doing that. What else can we do? Can we do community engagement more? You know, like that kind of stuff, wherever that next group or this group, after we get through this whole process is, but this group is gonna outlay, along with the projects that we're working on, where the parks are for the next 10 years, really, is what the RFP that we're putting out is. It should outlay what 10 years worth of parks will look like. And hopefully with this, and if we do it right and follow that, if we do an update in 10 years, which is typical, that update won't be a full, like, a master plan redo. It'll just be like, hey, where's the community at? Let's do the engagement. Let's take what they've done. Let's put the other things that were on that list that haven't got done, and then just shuffle it all right back down.
And then how can we, skate park has been a really big focus, right? Updating that skate park. Looking at this, what are our hopes for working on the skate park? Are we able to fit that in sooner into these numbers, Billy, or what are you thinking?
Again, it will come down to kind of where we look as far as potential new space for a skate park. I think if the vision from, not necessarily just from the master plan, but like the town scope was redoing Centennial, that we drive that force to making it more of a welcoming and open space for people to have a stage at, or whatever that looks like. If the skate park were to move from Centennial, I think would be the next biggest thing. If we're gonna try to like redo the skate park there, that would dictate to me that it hasn't been stated that it needs to move. So then we would look at that in a capital outlay as far as redoing the whole skate park in that space. Are you talking about little amenities, or, I mean, the biggest thing that I want to just, hammer in is that putting anything on here, having any one specific space in any one park is going to be hard until we get through the master plan.
Sure.
But we want that community engagement from all the specific people, so it'll be very vital. And this will tie into what we talk about in the master plan, that this group is going out and saying every time that we reach out to the community and need their feedback in the RFP or in the master plan, whether it's a survey, whether it is a town hall, whether it's a board of trustees meeting where we're presenting the proposed master plan, or we're presenting the companies, however that looks, or if we go and just do like a little evening at OCB and just see what people want to talk about, and they send a representative from whatever firm we pick, whatever all those little situations look like. We need almost a representative from everybody in the community that really wants a stake in parks and recreation. Trails, pickleball, skate park, community center,
So what
obviously.
does
Like,
the outlay of having, the last time that Cody presented the land acquisition, is that like a master plan gonna kind of come together?
so
Or is it gonna one lead the other, and then
we
really can't do nothing, we have no space.
right now, we're looking at that space as part of the feasibility study. Is that space going to work,
Gotcha.
if required, for a community center? Because if not, if it just doesn't work, like, when the professionals come in and say that actually isn't gonna do very well, we're gonna kind of have to rethink. It doesn't mean that they won't design a space for the town, doesn't mean that we won't go through the study of what the rec center or the community center might, the amenities it might have, what it might have outside and what spaces. But it might just mean that it either pushes it down until we can acquire land. But that, I mean, that land hopefully is, pretty key to us moving forward with the actual building of this. That's what a feasibility study does though, right? If we're in the place and we say we have that land and they say,
Gonna work.
right, it's not gonna work, right? It, for some reason or another, or let's be honest, it's a community center for the community. If the people around that space say heavily, no, or the community says, nope, we don't wanna push forward with the whole project, like there's a lot of things that could
Sure.
push it forward faster or make us hold off. That space is very key, for sure.
When is the feasibility? When is that happening?
Next year,
Next year,
this year.
okay.
So, do we wanna just move on from budget? I think, is that the next thing on there?
Move on.
Yeah, we're talking about the feasibility study and the master plan, unless you wanna continue budget.
So this is probably the best layout of the budget in 10 years that I've seen. Like,
I was gonna say, I actually was able to follow it like right down the list and I was like, well, there's that money, there's that money, there's that. Yeah, it was really actually,
this
yeah.
is the most clear cut, easy to read
I would agree too.
budget I think that we've ever seen. So, and I know that it's really hard to.
And like having an idea that you will, like you're just explaining, it was the GL, right? That you will do that and continue doing that. I mean, it could be 1,000 things long, but at least it's tracked. Like before we had no idea.
It is,
It
it's
was
so
insane.
confusing. Yeah, I mean,
It
we've
was-
just been beyond
Yeah,
confused or
yes.
frustrated and just like, I don't get it. And we'd sit in these meetings and to have it laid out like this is like, oh,
Whoa,
cool.
I'll be damned.
So, yeah,
Lot
thanks
of
to you
work
guys
on
for
the
sure.
back end.
Well, nice job. 'Cause
The
it-
format and all of that goes, kudos to, Nick or David and Kelly Hodling. They,
Best ever.
the three budget processes that I've been through now, it's gotten better every year, and this year is just like, I can see it just next year, so much more of a plug and play rather than so many meetings and trying to figure out all the stuff internally, and then just expecting when you post this at a trustee meeting in the
Mhm.
public to look at that also and just go, where's this information coming from? Where are you getting all of this? If you go to the very top of that, it shows the revenues and where we're getting it, and yeah, it's great.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
this is
so
awesome.
huge kudos to them.
Yeah, please tell them, because this is like probably the first budget that like, you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, when did the 2024 actuals come out? Just out of curiosity,
Oh,
is that usually after the first quarter?
typically I would say at least the first
Something like
quarter,
that.
because there is the 13th month where things that are still getting processed, projects that are in place that started before the end of the year still have to get paid for, so. End of first quarter, and Eric and I both work on a document together that we update certain things that we're looking at. So if you guys want like actuals or anything like that, we can present whatever you guys want, even if it's not like formalized from the town, we can give you any up-to-date actuals and information.
I think we're just curious.
Yeah.
And with such an like awesome, full, active board, like,
Yeah,
it'd be cool. My next comment was, impact fees, the trail impact fee and the park impact fee. These are the things that we've talked about a lot also as a board. And, I know that over the years, we've done a bunch of research. Billy's done new research about kind of what other municipalities are at, and that will feed into the master plan, right? Is, kind of figuring out what those updated fees will be.
that might be, I guess supplementary to the master plan, so the
Okay.
master plan might help dictate where we put impact fees.
Okay,
If we're so far back on certain spaces like Viewpoint, that we have $190 or $550,000, whatever that number looks like, of deferred maintenance. What impact has the community done around that? That will show where we need to put those impact fees so that we
Okay.
can recoup that money to make those projects pushed forward.
The right place.
So then we put them in the capital outlay and it says, hey, you have, in the next 5 years, we have $3 million worth of capital projects that are directly impacted by the local community, I can't ever remember the names that Cody says, those reference indexes. Remember he came in and talked about those reference indexes. If we can directly tie those to capital improvements, then that drives us to change the park and trail impact fees.
Okay,
Does that make sense? So the master plan will give us our capital outlay or help
Okay.
us push our capital outlay. And then we can tie those directly to the impact, and what that impact has created helps us create the dollars that we need to raise
That's right.
to fund those projects.
okay. But it's a step forward, right? It'll be.
It's an absolute step forward,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
And we could potentially, based on like a couple projects like Viewpoint, we know the impact of Sage Meadows
yeah,
on that park specifically, right? So we could tie that project in a capital outlay without a master plan to an increase in impact. But we would have to do that specifically for every project that we find. But once we have the master plan and the capital outlay, then we just say, oh, is that project tied to impact? Yeah, it is. Is that one, that one, that one, that one? Well, there's $2 million in the next 4 years. How does that equate to then taking that index and changing the impact funds all at once? Rather than just kind of picking and choosing projects that we see. Hope that makes sense.
sorry.
Good.
That's. So I know of that, when people do fee in lieu, or developers have done fee in lieu, there's
Yep.
an acquisition fund. Not that I need to know what's in there, but how do is that also tracked somewhere?
I think it should just be in the general park fund, but it also is set aside in
I'm missing.
nothing, it wouldn't be anything in the operational, it's tracked in here, but it's probably, since this is just a general numbers breakdown, this
Yeah.
isn't broken down, so.
What's
So
in the
what
fund
Laura was
balance?
looking at, yeah, all the fund balance stuff isn't broken down specifically like all of our GLs are, but there are specific spaces for these to go to. This is just kind of a generalized one, so we
Okay.
would have park, like, it would say, like park impact fees aren't on here as far as our revenue. It doesn't say that Larimer County open space tax isn't in our revenue, but that's part of our revenue. It just says revenues. But that would also be in our fund balance, our general fund balance in the park fund for in a specific location for land acquisition.
Okay, it just kind of sits
Yeah.
in the account.
Yep.
Should it be recommended that we purchase something?
Move to purchase land or propose to lay down on the land or whatever
Yeah.
whatever we would need to, yeah.
Okay, cool. Years ago, they used to talk about money coming in from state lottery, and I don't remember even what that
Oh, yeah,
was called.
that's in there as well. Yeah.
Okay, and
Yep.
that's part of
Yep, that's
that
part of our revenues. It's the GoCo funding. Yep.
GoCo funding.
Yep.
Okay.
Great Outdoors, Colorado. Yep, that's all part of it. So that taxes, GoCo, Larimer County,
All that
open
feeds into
spaces
that.
is
Okay.
all of what we take in.
Okay,
Which fantastic for GoCo. Realize that parks don't generate revenue, but parks are good for all, so they will cut of that lottery money and pushed it out. We all get a piece of that pie.
okay.
And one thing that I found out that was very interesting with at least the Larimer County funding, I talked to what's her name? She is in charge of distributing, not distributing, but in charge of allocating some of the funds for. One of them specifically is the open space taxes, that there's not very specific language on how you use that as long as it goes to parks, like you don't have to use it specifically for open spaces or trails or whatever, but because where we're at right now in our budget, it's not specifically spelled out, so we can kind of use it for operational funding as well as land purchase if we wanted to. So it is just kind of lumped into the general fund, because it did, when you look at kind of it from afar, you see that it's an open space tax, and the good thing is that it was noted that we can use it as long as we're improving our open spaces and recreating areas, so.
How would the board bring that to you, or do you bring that to the board for land acquisition? So say there's a certain property and gosh, we just know it would be great for parks or an open space. Is that something where you identify it and you bring it to the board and you're like, hey, what do you guys think?
We could.
Or is that something that we could identify and be like, hey, gosh, if this ever came for sale, or,
Sure.
which could be an awkward conversation, but like there's different parcels that would make sense, right? For parks. That's just something that we would put on the agenda and.
I think if we want to, in the future, put on the agenda potential land parcel acquisition and just have that understanding where we would want to move forward to as a PROST board, like key areas. A lot of those I would assume in our town will probably help with trails
Yes.
as much as parks.
Mhm.
Also, I'm hoping that the master plan will identify some of those spaces, so
Okay.
it makes it easier for us to say, this was identified as a trail gap. We know that, but it is in the master plan, so it is something that we should follow
Okay,
because we paid for this, right? And that's what really we're moving for.
yeah,
And then they ever become available, say, look, here's the funds that we have set aside.
right, it'd just be nice
Yeah,
to have
oh,
in
that
writing
makes so much
for us
sense.
and for future
Yeah.
post members, right, like, gosh,
Yeah.
this would be helpful.
So once we get that master plan document, everybody here will be very heavily involved in driving that forward. Very much so. At every single step. We will sit down and do a deep dive and what it means for operationally, what we just kind of take care of, whether that's like converting trails to concrete, from soft trails to concrete, where we start with that and all that and budgeting it, to where we're looking to identify spaces for parks and what's the most important, and trails, and where we try to activate this group as far as, what you really can push forward the community. Make the big changes. It's a huge project.
Yeah. Okay, do we have anything more on budget? I know we're ready to move into more on the master plan. Anybody else budget?
No more questions.
John? John's usually
Sleep.
pretty on top of budget as well, like he's very into talking about it, just trying to ask questions that I thought he might ask.
I don't have a whole lot, but as far
Oh,
You remuted John for some reason.
hold on, is that better? Okay, so there's been parcels that I've looked into as far as trails and parks go, because I would love if Centennial opened up to Cleveland. So we have that big, nice, bright park there, where if you're coming down Main Street, you see the park. And I know there's a few houses and Pizza Palace, and then the town owns the greenhouse. But at some point I brought that up, and then also there's a parcel that would help out with trails that does go underneath Cleveland, and I just looked it up, and it's quite pricey. So I know we're not talking about money wise, but there are things that I've looked into. So I kind of would like to know a number that maybe we have an idea what we could still suggest as far as what we would like to see happen. Because the trails is a big deal. We're eventually going to see a connection with Fort Collins. We're going to see a connection up north. I would love it if we could maybe figure out what we're working with and what we have an idea what we can do. And that's, I guess, my last thought on the budget. Otherwise, I agree. Everything looks really good. Probably like Laura Lynn said, one of the best budgets I've seen. So I'm real happy about that.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah. so
That's
maybe we
something
can-
maybe for a future.
Well, we could bring them to the, next month, right? John, we could bring some of the stuff we've written down for the different parcels and brain dump a little bit.
That'd be great. We put that on the agenda.
John, do you have anything else on that before we move on to the master plan?
No, I'm just really excited about the master plan.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I've said it over and over. I think this just gives our board a direction. It gives us an idea of what we need to really fight for. And I'm just really, really excited about where we're going right now. So super pleased with the budget.
Well done. You know, your ability to get up in front of the board and speak to them about the importance of having that direction definitely not kick started, because we've been talking about it for a while, but hit home the importance of making it part of this year's 2025's budget. So good work to you, John, on that.
You mute again?
Yeah.
Okay.
He heard it.
He heard, okay. Well, it's a master plan.
Yeah, I mean, spoke quite a lot about the master plan and what it will do. Kelly Hodeling did a huge swing, and we kind of created this RFP to go out and the timeline for us to start doing the work. It's kind of all laid out there. The goal would be within 12 to 18 months to get the master plan and community feasibility study done. I think it can be potentially done in less time. We did put in 12 to 18 months on it because we're seeking out a grant to help supplement $25,000 of the general. I would say $75,000 is about what the community center feasibility study will cost, and 10,000 was what the master, or 100,000, Jesus, 10,000, but we wish 100,000 will be what the master plan. So combined, they're budgeted at 175,000. We are looking to supplement $25,000 of that for specifically the community center feasibility study. So that a letter was sent out and they're processing the application at this point to see if we can potentially get some funding to help with that, which any grant funding we get takes off that and goes back into the Parks General Fund, which is fantastic. Or it might give us the opportunity to go through the process and work with the company and say, hey, if this land doesn't work, can you help us identify another land? So like add on a little bit, you know, that wasn't budgeted. So we have a little bit more wiggle room, who knows, but I know it's kind of it's 7 pages that we went through and added a decent amount of information. Just looking for some ideas or questions on what this is before we actually put this RFP out. I know, you know, what was that, Monday? I think we finalized this. We got a jump on it starting on Friday, basically, and Kelly and I sat down on Monday and finalized it. So sorry this wasn't out early to you, but this is the reason that I was like, I gotta get it out. I don't necessarily need your feedback immediately, but if you guys have a chance, sooner rather than later, if you have any feedback on what you would like the scope of work to be, if you think we need, you know, more or less community engagement. So basically what we'll do is we'll take all of this information, make this RFP, and hopefully put it out for bid January 6th to meet this timeline.
I haven't looked through any of this stuff, but does this basically have like a guideline of what what scope the town is looking
The
for?
scope of work that we would look to be hiring a firm to complete for both the
Okay.
master plan and the community center
is in there
feasibility
now.
study. Yeah,
Okay.
and that document was, it's in the packet, but I also sent it out. 2 different iterations, one on Friday, I believe, and then
Gotcha,
one on
yeah.
Monday after Kelly and I started doing some updates to it. There's information that we kind of picked and plucked and looked external, then looked internal and kind of changed some things, so.
Billy, will we, just 12 to 18 months, it's gonna put you past budget for 26. Are there things that we'll be able to pull out from the information that they've gathered and before it's complete to get that set
Prior to the
Prior to
capital
20
outlay there,
for 26?
for our capital outlay,
Yeah.
more or less, I don't know.
Are we
That
gonna
is a
skip
good
a year?
question.
Or miss out on 26 utilizing.
You
the master
know,
plan?
maybe what we'll do if we get to that point is just kind of go back to what we did before. If there are any pressing needs that we know we've already identified through PROST priorities, which is what I said I didn't want to do, right? But if we need to do that to continue at least moving forward with some
Like another doc
projects.
Comes up, something like that.
What?
The doc idea. comes
Yeah,
up.
something like that comes up, you know, maybe not these huge $300,000-$400,000 projects, which would be identified in here. Maybe if we know it's gonna be identified, we at least push it out there.
I don't know how the drafts go back and forth, like, hey,
Absolutely,
you know, if they've got their first draft in August,
yeah.
then you can.
We can look at that and see, but you know, we also, if we're going to the board to present capital outlay and saying we need money for X project, but they haven't adopted the master plan or haven't accepted the company,
Right.
the work done by X company. You also don't want to say that, well, we're banking on this, but it hasn't been adopted, so there's kind of that gray area
Yeah.
too. So that's why I would say we could potentially say, well, this project is, yeah, identified in the, you know, the first iteration. It's already been on the PROST priorities list for 5 years. Can we, you know, let's put $20,000-$30,000 worth of capital
Right,
money
okay.
towards that project. You know, like if a dock comes up
Yeah.
or something like that. Absolutely.
Okay.
And good question, though. The goal would be to get it done prior to that happening and
Right.
before budget season.
So
would
is there a
be
priority
great.
that you've set, like you said, Parks Master Plan first? And like, are you looking at the same company? It's the same SOW?
No, it's the same as RFP.
Yes. And you're giving them the scope of work?
There are a good amount of companies that can do both.
Okay, I was
But
gonna
that
say.
doesn't necessarily mean it
It will
has
be.
to be.
Okay,
But with this RFP, it is combined.
okay,
If we don't get great feedback from them doing both, maybe we try to then. That's why I want to get it out early. So if we
Yeah.
don't have anybody coming to us saying this looks like a project we want to latch onto, then we say, okay, let's do a follow-up meeting with all the companies that were at least on the project RFP list and then say, what can we do to make this more of a feasible product for you to latch onto? But there are both building and park and land and open space specific companies
Yeah.
that do both feasibility studies and master plan.
and they've gotta be used to municipalities that have, you know, they know budget seasons and they know.
Timnath did a very similar thing. Their scope of work was a little different because they had 3 sites that they were trying to pick for a recreation center. So that was part of their scope of work, was community engagement to pick which site.
Yeah.
Whereas ours is like, here's our take it or leave it for now, right? If it doesn't work, then we'll have to reassess like we talked about earlier. So that's taken out of the scope and they did theirs in, I think, a little under 12 months.
Okay,
With that being part of the scope and with, Timnath's expansion growing faster than ours, we kind of have our comprehensive plan in our area and all, that's all dialed out. We have a 2015 master plan to hand them and say that here, look at this and
Yeah.
all the things. I mean, I have a whole folder of stuff that we're gonna just like,
here you go.
here, if you want reference material to look before you bid on this project, this is kind of the stuff that will go into the project as well. But
Is there anyone at CSU that does anything like this? Even like masters or doctorate students,
I
the way. maybe-
doubt that like a person couldn't come. I mean,
Right,
most of these companies have teams of people that they send out. I don't
Right.
know.
sometimes there is like larger group projects. So I was just wondering too, maybe CSU might be able to throw some people our way.
Okay, yeah, that's
That
interesting
might
to
be an
think about.
interesting one to look into at least.
In years past, so like when we did the, community park, a member of the Parks Board was allowed to be part of the interview process. So we spent the day meeting with 3 different, companies, and it was awesome. It was really, a great thing to be a part of, and then we also did it when we were doing the trail stuff, got to sit in on those meetings. Will we get to be part of that, Billy?
Yes,
Will representative be present?
Yeah, so you're talking about um, the, all the stuff prior to notice of award. And once the RFP comes out, they give us their questions and inquiries, once those are closed.
Yeah, once that's closed
And
and
then
you
we
narrow
do,
it down
yeah,
to,
sealed bids and all that kind of stuff, we narrow it down.
I'm assuming you're gonna do that, right? Like 3 different companies and have
Actually, I
a,
don't know if we do
um,
sealed, but yeah. it depends on how
whatever,
it all rolls
a
out.
sit down
Mhm.
where you kind of meet with them. It was a really great thing to be a part of. I learned a lot, so I thought maybe a representative of the Parks Board might want to be there. Just to
Oh,
learn.
absolutely.
Could
Okay.
any of us attend if we're interested, or would it just have to be one of us?
I think that's something that we can discuss both internally to the town, and then I can kind of come back. Probably not, definitely not everybody. I don't know if it would, at that point, probably at least John.
Yeah, we did 2 for the WCP. I think we did 1 for trails, but just so it wasn't,
Mhm.
crazy, but it was
Yeah.
learning.
It's very much an interview, right?
Mhm.
But a little bit more back and forth discussion to figure out the project.
Can
but
we, at minimum, review the RFP responses?
That I will have to find out.
Okay. I'm curious, so I did read through this, it looks really good. The proposal format and the information about other work, so number 8, that's really interesting to me for them to be able to provide both references, of course, of previous work, but
Mm.
I'm also interested in, like, again, if this is a national company that has done this work in other states or other, towns, like some comparative analysis, so towns that are our size, but we know what we're interested in, but we don't know what maybe we're also missing. So I don't know, just some comparative analysis with other towns that are our size and those master plans. I'm sure we could obtain those ourselves, but it might be interesting to have that as part of the RFP process.
I know some of the decision making on past things, it really came down to their ability to help work with the community and pulling together the community involvement pieces. Just kind of a decision maker on who they worked with in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are you
Um,
sending these to like references, like an NRPA
It-
affiliated?
No, it'll go out on BidNet.
Okay, so when what kind of companies do this? We'll come up with a master plan.
Specific companies or?
No, like what, I mean, they're not civil engineers, I mean, it's a whole different
Yeah, they're,
ballgame.
I mean, when the town goes through, like we did our comprehensive plan, there's a company that bid for that, they might bid for this one. There's just firms built to do this kind of stuff.
Okay,
Come in and basically fill out whatever the scope of the work is for this.
To me, this is one of those things I didn't know you could do when you grew up. Was
Yeah.
like, go to towns and be like, this is
Yeah.
what you should spend your money
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Please pay me to tell you.
yeah, thanks for telling you,
Right.
That's
I
like
got
one
the
of those
knowledge
things
here,
where
but
I'm
it's
like-
gonna take a chance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, without saying names, there's at least 4, 5, 6 companies that have worked within the state on specifically parks.
Okay,
Or, we're gonna do a PROST master plan because we're small enough, but like City of Fort Collins did a Parks master plan. They're just going through an open space and trails master plan now. Like just different companies will bid based on their specialties, or if they have like some companies are national. And some have local presence, some like just doing huge, some have smaller firm,
okay,
you know.
but not
We have to
necessarily
feel all that
affiliated
out.
with NRPA or what is it, CPRA?
Not necessarily, but I'll tell you that a lot of the companies that put booths out there are master planning
planning
companies.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's a lot of conversation I had when I went to NRPA and CPRA were based on this, knowing that this was a potential at that point.
Yeah.
And since it was approved, like just having that. Trying to poke around and get understanding of if there are companies local, especially at CPRA, but nationally that would come out here.
Yeah.
Since we are a little bit smaller company, you know.
And my last question, what did Tim spend on theirs?
Very similar,
Okay,
a little bit less. It was
Okay.
165 was theirs. But they started off at
and that was
100,
included a community center, okay,
but with the tri-site analysis.
yes.
So one less scope. So we're giving ourselves a little bit of wiggle room,
Okay.
knowing that it's a year later.
Mhm.
So inflation or whatever people want, you know, to say about increasing costs year over year, plus taking out a pretty decent size chunk of that finding and seeking process, since we don't have to identify 3 spaces
Mhm.
and what they would be able to be utilized on. It's just one, and is it good? And you know, that takes a big portion out of what they outreach with the community. A lot of, you know, 3 different meetings at 3 different places to make sure that they captured local as well as a town meeting, all based on that. Ours will all be about amenities, and I mean, it, within this, they should be doing, if it's picked up this way, an outlay on helping us how we would fund it in the future as well. Like all of that is in there. Capital stuff is in there, how we fund a community center over time rather than it both now and over time to keep it going. So a lot of that will then just be turned over to the community to say, this is how we'll do it. Shall we or shall we not?
I lied, is that gonna be a, I'm gonna ask one more. Are they gonna get into your operations?
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, they'll look and say, why are you doing this?
Mhm.
And question, and just ask questions and.
I hope they do.
Eric's
Flexing
Eric's like, not really.
Oh, correct.
That Bob,
How dare you?
that Bob.
Bug in the ear, he's like, change a few things.
No more Wordle.
No more Wordle. Funny. Yeah, I mean, I hope they take a huge deep dive into everything that we're doing.
How will, information from safe routes be kind of pulled into that?
It's already a part of the file that we'll hopefully just pass on and say, here's the information from our town
There
that
you
helps you drive what we're working on. We've been partnering with, I mean, they do, in there's a piece about current facilities, and so we'll talk about the fact that we don't have facilities. But moving forward, until we do get it, if we were to get a community center, I should say, how we work our recreation based on that, where we could expand programs, where we shouldn't expand programs. Like that'll be the internal look at ourselves to then help us drive that side of it too. And then what we've been doing with safe routes, what we've been doing with, you know, the trail, all the stuff with Lambert County and City of Fort Collins trails and where we're at with them. And how that partnership could, you know, work in the future and what we should be need to actually do now versus later. It's hopefully gonna be very, very comprehensive.
I'm curious if they'll come up with something like making Centennial Park a community park, bring like businesses in, like how it will like unify the whole area, like, you know, kind of a thing, like what their scope or
Yeah,
projection of
I
that
think,
would be.
I think that'll be,
I mean, that
pretty,
would be huge.
pretty solid discussion with them.
They're gonna give us ideas that may hurt feelings, right? I mean, so.
I would hope so.
Like,
Eventually.
it's gonna be, I mean, they could come to me and say, you know, I'm a pickleball advocate. Pickleball is just not there in the future. You know, I mean, that, they could say stuff like, we're wanting stuff like that, right?
We want
For the
it,
next
yeah.
10 years,
And
where's society going or where's the population interest?
absolutely, and that's why I say, the people in our community, we need to do a good job in this group of making sure that people who are invested
Yeah.
get there,
Yeah.
because their input is the community. I mean, we don't do what we're doing for ourselves.
Right.
We haven't pushed off projects to do it for ourselves. We're pushing it off to get directive for what's best for the community, the needs, and then hopefully in the future, the wants. But what is needed? So
Mhm.
yes, there's gonna be some tough conversations. But the great thing is, it's gonna say, look, there won't be like well, maybe there will be a black and a white on there, but it'll very much be, if it's black and white, look, this is what we're following, this is what we put to the Board of Trustees, this is why we had this master plan, this is what we're doing. And if there is the gray area, that's what this group is here to do, is to decide where that next
Yeah.
move is.
Love it.
It's a lot,
Mhm, that's what I
exciting.
was
Yeah.
thinking, like,
But it's a sweet.
but it's
project.
also needed. It's
It
coming at a
really
time when
is.
it's really
Yeah, it
needed
really
for our
is.
community, and I think that, it's a great way to have important conversations within our community
Yeah,
Mhm.
about who we are and what
Yep.
we want our community to be.
it really gives us, our department and this group, something to stand on when those tough conversations come up. We won't have to say, this says this, so we're doing it. It's gonna be like, this is what it recommended. So this is what we're trying to follow, and these are the reasons why we're proceeding in this way.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to have that guidance, where it feels like we're
Huge
not just
guidance.
trying to
Yeah.
pull what we think is needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say in the next few months, as you guys have time, if you haven't already, read through the old one. Like,
yeah,
and so then when the company's hired and they come and they start talking, you can say, gosh, I'm hoping this is in there, that's in there. Pull the things that you do like, from the master plan, because I imagine we'll have some of those conversations too. So, yeah, great. I know it's a lot, but, as you guys have.
yeah. The fact that we don't have huge projects besides WCP next year, this is the project. This is your homework. This is the outreach we're doing, is to get people in. So please do read through that, highlight what you like, question marks.
John?
I think some of what Laura Lynn said about looking into the past of what we've been working on and some of the community outreach and keeping that in mind. And when we get this new study done, the master plan, keeping that in mind so we can reach out to those communities and get them involved. So if there's a survey or anything that they can get involved in, that we include them and make sure that they're heard. That way, moving forward, that might impact the city also. That way we're focusing on granted, the needs, the wants are a little bit different, but just making sure that everybody knows when these things come out that they need to speak up and be involved. I think that's a really important part of this master plan, is making sure that people that want certain things, pickleball, disc golf, whatever it is, they speak up and they get involved. I think that's a really important part of this study. So if you know the community, if you're involved with pickleball, you're involved with disc golf, just make sure that those people know that their voice will be heard. And that's what's going to help drive us forward.
Absolutely. A big part of the old master plan too was talking about walkability to parks, and it was a huge driving factor as we look at redoing parks, but also new parks, right? And the goal was to know how far a kid has to walk to get access, right? And it's been a huge driving factor for this board. And it's also a way that we can educate the community as far as why we make the decisions we do. I had somebody talk to me about, gosh, we don't need a playground at Centennial when we redo it. I don't think there should be, this there or that there. And it's really nice to be able to say, well, actually, we try to have, I don't know about the size, but we try to have these amenities within a walkable distance. And that's why this board makes the decisions they do, is because this is the agreement that we came to, was here's what we want to provide for the residents of Wellington. It's been a really nice thing to fall back on, as far as like, here's why we do what we do. So, I think that's all I got. Do you guys have anything else on this one?
It's probably the most excited about hearing the word master plan I've been.
Excited to talk to him.
Right, it's been like a beat your head against the wall conversation all the time. Yeah.
Anything else, Billy?
I master planned out before it even started.
Yeah.
Oh my
I'm
God.
excited, I'm so excited.
Pretty cool. Infrastructure capturing.
Do we wanna pull this up? Do you wanna pull up the map real quick, just so they see? I said at the, sorry. I said at the last meeting that we would just show you what we were doing, since that last meeting went a little bit long. We'll just give a quick little blurb on what it looks like that we've been internally working on. If you could get it out. If we need to move on before you get that, we can.
Go to,
Yeah,
okay,
go to the
let's
next
talk
one,
about
sorry,
the
since,
agenda, retreat
uh,
agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, what I have on the agenda for our retreat, I just put this as kind of a general idea, is just like our annual work plan. I know a lot of that's gonna be the master plan, but that's kind of just the idea of what we're gonna be working through. Talking through the new approved positions in everybody's spaces and subcommittees. Okay, that's on the agenda. Now it's got the naming that's coming back, as well as the fundraising level structure. Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda, do work prior to that. It sounds like John and Laurelyn wanted to just talk about potential land acquisition. In spaces that have been identified in the past, so that current members understand what's been thought about, as well as me bringing in kind of a general funding idea of what we would do, can look for, what we have in the budget. What else were we thinking about speaking and working on at?
What time was this meeting?
What time was
I think
this
it was at
meeting?
1 or 2,
Till whenever, and who's making brisket?
but it's also a Sunday, so we'll
Yeah.
need to be mindful of. It's on the 12th.
I have on my calendar.
2 to
it
6.
Is 2 to 6 is correct.
January 12th.
January 12th on a Sunday.
Perfect.
I will be in
Because-
Chicago.
We won't. Well, we decided that you weren't gonna be in Chicago, so that we could do
Yeah,
this
so I
on the
know
12th.
what-
We're gonna have to get you on Zoom.
For 4 hours.
4 hours.
You take a sightseeing.
I missed this whole
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes, you did. So Robert's
up
busy, we gotta
everything.
figure something out another date out.
I don't know if there is another day that works. We kind of went through a gamut.
I could do the following Sunday.
I will be out of town.
I will be out of
The
town.
20th? Oh, sorry, the 19th.
Yeah. I will not be.
The next 2 weeks after that, I'll be gone.
Could we do the 5th, or are people traveling?
I'm here.
I could do the fifth.
Fifth is
I'm
fine.
here the fifth.
I could do the
John?
fifth.
Yeah, the 5th works for me.
Wow.
No, the 5th can't work.
Oh,
We'll do
You're kidding,
that,
right?
we'll do it without Billy.
We're getting you on
Uh,
Zoom.
that's, you can do it, that's probably smart to do it without me. Actually, the 5th works very well for me.
2 to 6.
Yep.
1 to 5.
2 to 6.
We have it on there 2 to 6.
1 to 5,
so-
2 to 6.
I don't care.
I don't care either.
Can we just put, I'll just put, did I put
30.
a calendar invite?
You did.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna edit that and I'm gonna put on there 1 to 6. We don't need to spend all 5 hours, but if it turns out to be 1 to 5 or 2 to 6, I'll amend it later. Just block it off on your calendars for that time. And we can that adjustment as we go.
Where are we doing it?
Wasn't it your
Was
house?
hosting, I thought, or was it Aaron?
It wasn't, you don't wanna go to mine.
I thought it was John.
We'll all be crammed in. I know somebody who owns a coffee shop.
Me too.
I mean, it's fine by
I know a
me.
couple people that own coffee shops, but who are we
Totally
talking?
fine. Yeah, I don't care. I can do it at the coffee shop.
I just like coffee.
It's fine by me. We close at 1 on Sunday,
Can you get
so
football playoffs at your coffee shop? That's a
I do have a TV in
Is
there.
it a smart TV? I've got NFL package I can log into.
Yeah,
Yes, we can.
probably do that.
Is that okay, Lauren?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be good.
Easy.
if the Broncos make the playoffs and they play on the fifth.
Leave the dishes dirty, we'll do a cleanup for you guys too.
Just
Should
having
we
an
do
earbud in
a,
listening
like a
to it.
potluck?
Oh, we
Yeah, that's what we talked about.
Yep, brings,
Okay.
yeah,
Potluck, all right.
Potluck sign up.
yeah,
I missed all this.
I'll make coffee.
You did.
So what are we doing there?
A
Just
work
big-
session, just a work
It's a
session to talk about.
retreat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what else on the agenda so we can
Um,
get through and hammer out of here?
John, this is kind of a question for you too. At one point, I kind of wanted to take a swing at updating the bylaws. Do you care?
As far as what goes.
Just some of the, I know we're talking, we're updating, the positions and kind of what they do. And we have not updated our bylaws probably since we were formed in 2014.
That'd
so
probably be a good conversation to have in January. As far as what's maybe expected out of each roles, and then maybe tuning in the bylaws to that.
I
If
was
that makes
willing to
sense.
take it, yeah, I was willing to take a swing at it and just bring copies, like we could do some updated language. I'd put it in a different color and then see if you guys like it.
That sounds good to me. And Laura Lynn, we could probably talk before the January meeting. And kind of, I'll give you my insight a little bit, if
Right.
that's okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking it was something we could, yeah, absolutely. And anybody, really, it's in the binders. I think we could get it digitally, out to everybody too. But I don't think we've updated since 2014 and there's probably just a few things that need freshened.
Yeah, and if you've got some time on a weekend, I could drop by if you're either going to be at Owl Canyon or we could meet somewhere else or whatever you want to do. I've got a few ideas for the next coming year that I'd like to run
Awesome,
by
yeah.
you.
Sure, I'll just send it over and yeah, we can just kind of kick it back and forth. I mean, I was kind of thinking, just a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, if we come to this meeting fully prepared, right, and it's more of a review instead of like a review and update instead of like a building, that might go quicker and smoother.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, I think we could maybe start outlining stuff, and then the people that have taken positions can also maybe put their input in January, and then we could always make little tweaks here and there.
Right? Any updates people want to bring for PROST priorities for updating that, like anything you want added? It's a good time to say, oh gosh, we probably forgot this, or we weren't thinking about that, or whatever. Be
So-
nice.
Could we put something at the very beginning of the agenda of a little bit of an overview of projects and priorities? Because I feel like I'm jumping in and I know maybe a quarter of the information of what you guys have been discussing for the past couple of years.
Okay.
And if we're gonna start the year fresh, it would be really nice to have maybe even the first hour of and maybe it doesn't need to be the first hour, but the first chunk of the meeting really being this, like, hey, this is how we started. These are some of our priorities. These are things that have accomplished. These are the things that are still on our post priority. What do we need to adjust, change? What projects are ongoing, like the disc golf stuff. I'm like floating out in space about that.
Okay.
So those are the pieces for me that I see as a need as a new.
What if we
board member.
do a previous and annual, because we talked about doing an annual review,
Mhm.
like at least doing an outline or talking about what will go in our annual review, the PROST annual review. We can do previous work and annual review outline. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Okay, we'll put that at the very beginning.
Thank you.
Does anybody need any, does everybody have a copy of the priorities, the bylaws, the old master plan, like,
Unless you emailed those to us when we first were added.
okay.
And I would like
I-
to have a paper it's easier for me to read them than
Let's
that stuff
bring
by
'em.
paper.
Yeah,
Binders.
I email, or I think I threw the 2015 master plan on an email at some point, but I can do that again and we can print it out.
Yeah, I guess a fresh one would be nice. I'd have to dig through all my stuff just for.
Mhm.
Send
Orland,
it to everybody.
one of the
Yeah,
things
just send it out again,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't mind.
that Jesse and I had talked about a little bit was, you know, you guys have a whole bunch of notes and projects and things that you've worked on that are not gathered in one place, and
Yeah.
trying to organize some sort of Google Drive for our post
Digital.
committee, where when you add new post members, they have a spot they can go to sort through and read things. That while a binder is great, sometimes that just gets shoved in a spot, and it would be nice to keep a record of all of that.
Where did you land on that? Are we okay to do that?
Yeah, I think I can host that,
Okay.
or the person in my position can host that.
Okay. And then is there a way, is there an easy way to get some of your stuff? You know, maybe it means the three of us sit down and we talk about, because Jessie said she has a system with work too that will like AI take
Yeah.
stuff and digitize the kind of a format.
Sweet.
That would be a way for us to take all your notes and things and.
Yeah,
I have one question.
It's gonna
Yeah.
go
Is that a
around about
question if you
AI
can do
story for
that?
now.
Yeah.
Or
I guess it's a question.
Well,
we can do
yeah,
later.
is that allowed to use AI
Yeah.
for that capability? Okay.
don't question, just roll with it.
okay,
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
yeah,
Cause
Okay,
it's,
then let's get
you can
together.
start emailing,
Yeah,
and then you can put it where it needs to go.
so back to that question though about, does it need to be hosted in a public site or like, what's the rule?
I would have to
around
get it back and then
transparency?
share it out to everybody so that,
Okay,
well, I would want the information for future
well, of course,
members, so then, yeah, I would just share it.
but does it have to be a public? Like, does that have to be,
It would need to probably come, if it's stuff that this board is working on, it probably needs to be hosted by the town.
so you would create the Google Drive where we
Yeah,
would
or
store all that.
share file.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
Which
We
we
can
weren't able to
organize it
log
then.
on to
Yeah.
it last time,
Well, I'm
right?
not sure that works. Okay.
Cause it'd be nice to hit the ground running with all that prep information and a place to plug it in
Or if it has to be.
too,
Yes,
after we meet in
Okay.
January.
yes.
okay.
I'm a little type A.
No, let's keep going.
That'd
You
be
didn't know
great.
that already.
No, it's
No
awesome.
glue sticks.
So I have a pretty hefty agenda for that day. I know we have a decent amount of time. Eight different things. I think that first thing is gonna take a pretty decent amount to catch up as well as talk about the annual review, so. If I send this out, just like in a bullet point agenda, we'll make amendments to that and I can add it to our typical.
Can I make a suggestion that
Excel
we
sheet.
actually start with the positions, potentially the bylaws, like, let's level set with everything?
Okay.
And then move into, I just think that'd be helpful, then, like, we all know exactly what our roles are and what
Yep.
we're supposed to be doing for the rest of the meeting, so.
And we kind of already established liaisons in that one meeting too.
Mhm.
So we have that groundwork started.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
All right, guys, I'm just making notes of stuff to start sending out.
Fire
Good luck.
it off.
Hmm?
Firing them off.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, okay. What else do we have?
Back to the,
We can go back, yeah, back to infrastructure.
Do you wanna talk about this? Is that your name?
Sure.
Give you space.
So this is our whole layout of the town at the moment, everything that's in there. Arbor Valley helped us out with the tree inventory, so you'll see that as the overwhelming amount of things labeled here, and over here are like kind of the signs for all of them. We did have somebody go through and do quite a few of the things, and I don't know if he's added the stuff that we were missing. He didn't have trash cans and some of that stuff in here when he went to do it, like beds and buildings and whatnot. But so if we go in, this is Centennial Park. So these are all the trees around Centennial Park. Each one of these is a sprinkler head, and the accuracy is down to 4 feet, which is really nice. So the idea behind what this can do in the future is if we identify that something is broken and can create a work order and send it to staff, I mean, they could walk out and basically walk right over to the broken piece of equipment if it's not something that's visible, or, you know, if it's just like, it's not rotating properly, thinking a spring, irrigation head or anything like that. But it can get extremely granular, and it's a lot of stuff, and the person who helped us start this did a huge portion of it, so very thankful for that and all that he was able to do to get it done. But yeah, it's pretty robust, but it's gonna be very helpful for us to help track, you know, assets, and then, you know, quantities of each thing, and eventually going down to, you know, how much that is dollar value wise of, you know, what we maintain, and, you know, kind of mentioning it, but eventually integrating with some sort of how much time we spend managing each thing, and, you know, work orders, how often things break. Should something not be replaced because it never stays, or, you know, all that fun stuff. And eventually, you know, just a recycling of, hey, this thing consistently fails at 5 years, so let's replace it at 4.5, rather than scrambling in year 5 to get a major piece broken. Just all those things will eventually come as we get all of that entered. So it's been a huge help, but yeah, it's super cool. Going out to do it is just, I mean, it's fun, but it's tedious for sure. This is Wellington Community Park. These are all the trees in that space. Down parking lots and irrigation boxes, batting cages here, ball fields. He's got trails that he got mapped out. He just rode his bike down the trails that tracked it. And, yeah.
That's cool.
It's
That's really cool.
Operational capital planning, all of it that we talked about today. All of this master planning. This will help us track it all.
Yeah.
Click on something and be like, oh, we replaced that last year. How is it already broken?
Mhm.
Yeah. Or, hey, won't need to replace this even though it's on the capital because it's still good. Can we change that?
And it's got, you know, really cool information on each one. Like, here's the types of trees that they are, and, you know, it breaks
What
all of
condition
this
they're in.
down. Yep, what condition, if it's still okay, if it needs to be replaced. And all things that we can filter out to see. So, you know, we could go into just trees and say, how many of our trees are dead? You know, total. So if it was like a big push to, you know, do trees. And, you know, what would it cost to replace every dead tree next year or something?
Yep.
You know, we can pull that up and tones that down.
And
That's pretty cool.
And that's part of our Tree City USA, right? Is them wanting to know how many trees and.
And how much our budget is for trees and what our work plan is. So when we sit down with the companies that help us maintain our arborists and our tree installers and the sprayers and all that, and you sit down at the beginning of the year and be like, hey, where do we want to focus? Well, we have X amount of trees in this area, so let's focus on the south side of town this year, or whatever that looks like. Yeah.
That's cool.
We'll set work plans.
And if you ever want to do something like get more accreditations or whatever, this is a giant leap towards doing that. Because this is something that they ask for.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be the start, yeah,
That's
for sure,
awesome.
for all that.
So you can use this and be like, we have 300 this kind of trees, like it itemizes everything. That's pretty sweet. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
and like Eric said, hopefully in the future, it'll integrate with a more robust program that will give us full-on data that we can push out in annual reports and like you said, how much time it takes to, we spent X amount of money, but we also spent X amount of time on irrigation. If we put this park in this new development, is data says we absolutely need a new irrigation technician. Unrefutable data right here
Mhm.
says that, right? We won't have time to maintain any of the stuff south of here if we don't, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it helps drive us. This also gives us another thing to stand on in progression. Beautiful. Yeah, and the cool thing too is, once we get this really up and running and get access points to different people and different things, hopefully the goal is to give you all access, so when you go out to your parks, you can be like, oh, this light is out. Key in it, make it dead, and then that will pop up to us and be like, okay, work plan, whoever the technician is that takes care of that park, you need to take care of this.
Or like submit work orders.
Submit work orders, inventory tracking, all that kind of stuff for recreation.
Crooked goalposts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's great for goalposts.
Just like hillbilly.
It's just-
Sitting like this.
Very cool.
Okay, anything else on this item? Good.
No.
Sorry, couldn't see that, John. It's neat.
It's like circles and squares and stuff.
Right, future calendar.
Kind of went through the future
Yeah.
calendar, right? And then I think with the planning, work, annual work plan, we'll try to build out as much of our future agendas as possible, or at least have an idea of what we want to see every month, who we want to bring in as far as guest speakers, that kind of stuff, so. Done.
Perfect. We talked about having Cody come the same month every year, so he was prepared and it was good, right? Like, you can count on him.
Like the best ones.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's great.
He is so
Maybe
smart.
twice a year.
He is so smart. Twice a year?
Yeah.
Cody knows them big words.
Yes.
I'm just like that metric data that he talks about. Yeah, that one. Y'all remember that? Cause I don't remember the name of it.
Okay, town staff announcement.
We onboarded a new employee that filled the space of assistant recreation coordinator that was vacant when, we got the new position that Eric got promoted to. Her name is Ellie McNamara. She hopefully will come to a meeting in, the first part of the next year to meet everybody. She started this Monday, so we've had it just for a few days. She's already hopping over and is at adult volleyball tonight with our recreation coordinator, Emma. So, that's been awesome to have just another person in the office. She's very fired up. We had a 3.5, 4 hour, no, 6 hour recreation, our retreat, just yesterday. Like that out, in this room, and she was just soaking in information and giving, her feedback on things already, so, that was really cool. We last weekend was the holiday magic that we were all a part of, which was really fun. We kind of chatted a little bit about that before, so we've already started our planning for the 4th of July festival. We had a meeting for that today, so we're kicking that off earlier to try to get things moving forward.
Recovering from 4th of July.
That's how it happens. Like, you don't have a lot of time, spending a lot of time on, the RFP. Budget is now over, so we can start moving forward with what we'll work on next year. Master plan. The dock is in, and if you want to go check it out, the concrete is around it. They backfilled some of the soil this week, so that's all for the most part graded. We'll just get some either seed or sod in there to make it look real nice for next year. If you haven't checked out the dock, go look at it. It's freaking cool. It's really neat.
Keep seeing people over there.
It's awesome.
It's fun.
That's a great one, I'm really.
Let's see, what else? Oh, the truck, we talked about the truck purchase earlier. And then we've got most of the materials set and are in. We're waiting for 2 more shipments for the dog park materials. Once that's all in, as long as the ground isn't frozen over there, we'll put the dog park in at Wellville. Disc golf stuff is in, we don't have a firm date on when, oh yeah, we are waiting for the actual, the greens pads. So we have the tee box pads and all the materials for it. We're still waiting for the greens to come in. Thank you for letting me, yes. And then the course designer should be out right after the first of the year. Timeline getting crunched, but I mean, we're all good there because the purchase was made. So we just put that in as soon as the weather's good and we have the volunteers to get it in. The disc golf club is super excited. We've been emailing back and forth about how fired up they are to get that done. So once we have the designer come out, he'll do a preliminary or a secondary one. He did the preliminary one already that we pushed towards the board of trustees. And then I'll bring that back to the group here to review. When he comes, I'm perfectly fine sending out a calendar invite to have you guys walk the course too.
Cool.
And check that out. Either we'll have to see what he wants to do. It might just be a real quick, he's scouting the area, then he'll get us that, and then when he comes out to do the final design, that might be where we take the information we get and then walk with him to make sure everything that we want is done.
Can you send the preliminary design to us?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
I haven't
It's
seen
in
it.
it's in a past PROST packet and then also in a board of trustee packet, so I'll dig that up.
Perfect.
It's in the PROST file, so I'll dig that up and
Thank
get
you.
that out, yep.
Okay.
5 gator skins sitting in the shop.
Oh,
if
yeah.
Somebody wants to
Yes.
help.
Yeah.
Robert replace some gator
Yes,
skins.
sir.
Oh, I know.
Community project, new girder skins.
I'm about ready to order 60 of them.
That's-
50 or 60.
I'm a very busy dude right now.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yes.
They're so happy.
What about the bike fix station?
Oh, yeah.
That's in safe routes. I actually haven't heard back.
I'm just,
Reached
I'm
out
not,
to her.
I'm not
No, no,
placing
I
on you, like,
understand.
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
excited.
Yeah, I
to,
think
like-
everybody's excited about that. I don't have an update for those specific ones.
Okay.
We still have the ones that we have. We want to put them all in at the one that we have. But we want to kind of get a concrete pour to make all of them put in at the same time rather than just doing these tiny little pads. But when you go to Wellville, also, another update, we did a bunch of concrete. Did I say this at the last one? Park Meadows got a new ADA access going into the playground there. And then in Wellville, in the circular parking lot, I don't know if you've ever ridden a bike there or walked there. It used to have the one that's kind of on the side that you'd have to go around, or a lot of people would come in from Halleck and like go under the tree or across the park. There's like a walking trail. We knocked out that whole area that goes directly over the culvert and towards the ponds. So that's now a wider winged out ADA access, and it went from over the culvert. It was just like a short or mini little 6 foot wide path. It's now the full 8 foot that connects directly to the trail rather than it coming down and then expanding back out. So it's a full on access straight over the culvert wider. Go check out the ponds. There's a lot of new concrete as well as a lot of access, as well as that, what's it called? The dock. Oh yeah, that thing. That's floating in the pond over there.
Is there a way to get more social media love out there for all the cool stuff that you guys are doing, not only with rec and
Yes.
parks and PROST and, really like of all the things happening in the town, like there's some happy, cool things, right? And it'd be nice.
Thank you for bringing that up. So the park amenities map is still a go, but I personally pushed it off because at the point that we were getting to, it wasn't green. And I didn't want drone photos taken of the parks when the ponds aren't full and the parks aren't green and there's no leaves on trees. Cause I want it to look as good as possible. So is actually Kelly Hodeling's idea to do exactly what you're talking about. In lieu of like, hey, here's here's what we have as far as amenities. To push out the things we've done, like the underpath lights, like the dock, and just not necessarily, saying the ribbon cutting will be the initial thing that we do there. But like, this is what we've been working on and pushing those out one at a time.
Yeah,
So yes,
okay, good.
yeah,
I think the town could use
I agree.
some warm fuzzies about all the cool stuff. going
yes.
Mhm.
on.
And the hopefuls too, they
Yeah,
wanna know.
Up
like,
and
I've-
comings, yeah.
I've talked to a lot of bikers specifically, and they have like no idea we're even trying to connect a trail to Fort Collins, or like these small little things here and there about the the Veterans Memorial. A lot of people just still don't quite know about it yet,
Yeah.
so it would be really nice for other people to know.
We'll try to put out one after the first of the year, but maybe we can just get a real quick list in our. I'll put that on the agenda, a real quick list of things that we want to promote in the next few months from the town social that we've worked on or that we are gonna work on. So maybe we'll do what we've done for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then after that, like, hey, here's what's coming up.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Even
we-
reminders, cause some people miss it the first go around. That's kind of,
Mhm.
thing you discovered it,
Or did you know that there's a parks, recreation, open space, trails group?
did you?
Yeah, right.
Come,
I do.
that.
I do.
Right?
Looked at me when you did.
Right, but do you know, and not only do they, occasionally need people for seats, but volunteers, please come. Did you know you can come to these meetings? It's completely open. I'd love to see there's so many people moving here, right? And so many people have questions and we all see it on the social media accounts. Be really cool just to be educational, right, with this and come hang out. It'd be great to have this room filled with a lot more people excited about parks and trails.
Yeah.
On that note, is it worth doing a post introducing each of the board members, having them talk a little bit about Wellington, whether it's their favorite park or something like that, and putting faces to names so that people see you in town, they know, okay, men, fix your faces.
No, it works, cause I
Yeah.
I do
the
think
skate
that,
park's been my thing and I always run into people.
yeah, and people, if they see your face, they're gonna know, hey, they can ask you questions
Yeah.
about what's happening, or they can, I just think those are different ways for them to.
You call for the volunteer tag.
Fix your
You were
face.
the one That wanted the volunteer tag.
It's just an idea. It doesn't have to be done, and I don't know how often the town does that, but it's another way for us to connect
They help.
with people.
Yes, there
Yeah.
are ways.
You
for
know,
sure.
and I think, I was even thinking about, as we get closer to the holiday season, like a wish list, okay? Like all of our kids are sending their wish list letters to Santa. As a community, what are some wish list items that we have? It feeds right into our park plan and our feasibility, it's like, that's a big ask. It's what is on your wish list?
Sit on Dennis's lap.
What do you want?
Well,
What do you want for Pro-Smith? What do you want for Pro-Smith?
Yeah,
Grossmas?
what's on your PROST?
That's a
Gross
great
list?
one. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Grossmas.
I just think that we
pretty good.
talk about this time of year, let's start that conversation around, this is what we're approaching next year. We are building a parks plan.
Yeah.
In 2025. What's on your wish list?
I don't know, just, more
Okay, Love
happy,
it.
more happy.
Yeah, I like that.
and that's where
Cool
it
stuff.
was driven from, it's like, we're doing great things, let's get it out
Yeah.
Yeah.
there. Okay,
People like to hear it. Yeah, and repetitive is not a problem, I don't think.
No,
See it
No.
over and
I agree.
just keep,
not in this community.
yeah, cause you always miss it, you don't miss it.
Mhm.
And if anything I learned from TikTok and Instagram is you see the same shit, stuff over and over again, and you're still not bothered by it. I know.
Poor owl.
And did you know it's regarding recreation too? I think there's
Yes.
a lot of people, I know when I got my kids involved, I hardly knew back then what was available, right? And I still think there's probably people that we've talked to and they're like, I didn't know. That's cool. And they get really excited, right? So.
Yeah.
Did you know we got all this stuff?
Like it.
You should highlight some of the new programs you've rolled out for Parks and
Yeah.
Rec this year too.
I was thinking we should do, I wrote it down while you were talking about this, but like a you know how Spotify does their like Wrapped, we should go
Oh, yeah.
Parks and Rec Wrapped, like
Yeah, those are cute.
5 new programs that you never listened or, you know.
Yeah,
just-
I think that's a great
I like
idea.
that.
We'll
That's
see.
fun.
Yep.
I like that.
I like that idea too.
I thought you were gonna have Aaron rap, because I was all for that.
I could do that.
Let's give him some sticky dots.
Yes.
Stick.
Hey, John, can you make a motion for that, please?
I'm loving the ideas though. I think the outreach is a key part of our group anyways, but I love Sarah's idea of kind of the introduction of the members and, you know, these are our parks and I have no problem giving out my contact information. And if somebody wants to get a hold of me and just talk about anything in their local park or anything they just have an idea for, and then the idea of, you know, kind of like what we present to the trustees already as what we've done before, what we're working on. I think that's really important for the community to know. And then be able to chime in and say, you know, this is something maybe you haven't thought about, and this is something that would be really important for my family or my kids. And I really like the ideas that are floating around right now.
Speaking of an outreach location, if we're really trying to target families, we've got to get information and people over to Little Monsters. Cause I was in there last weekend and usually I go in places and I know at least 1 or 2 people. There were people in there I had never seen in Wellington before in my life. And those are the people we need to be reaching because they're not in other places.
Sure.
And those are, and they have little kids and they're gonna be the ones at the parks and so
Love it.
those are the sorts of places and they're awesome. I mean, there's a family, own a small business. And they are all about being involved in our community. So
It's a great idea.
it's a good one.
Like it.
And I'll be there on weekends with my children, so.
That's
Post open hours.
That's one thing. There's a lot of issue with like volunteering and everything. A lot of people want to help. They just don't know how to.
Mhm.
So if we can just put it out there, like, hey, this is stuff that we're looking for. If you have any ideas for us, or if you want to actually hands-on volunteer at some of our events or anything, I'm sure we could get a lot more help than what we've been getting in the past.
And that's definitely volunteers is like, you gotta hit a big group
Right.
to hopefully get
Mhm.
a couple, yeah, it's a, it's a tough one.
Right.
Well, and getting fresh volunteers too. I think what you find is you end up with a lot of the same people
Sure.
trying to do all the things.
And they
Right.
get burnt out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then people just are tired.
And,
Yeah.
What would you guys know about that? Never had this room.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sorry I haven't been here for a while.
It's very
It's crazy.
Does anybody have any updates or anything that any of the parks are needing? I mean, we don't need to go one by one, but just anything that we need to bring up? Okay.
No.
Rugby posts. Okay, got it.
I didn't say a word. Oh, viewpoint looked good today. Checked it out today.
See that back corner? Where the culvert is? Cleared all that stuff out.
No, it looks good. Yeah, except for a goalpost.
So I thought the picture was, I was like, doesn't the culvert look? Oh.
That thing in the foreground.
Cool. Awesome. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks, Billy.
John, do you have anything more?
I just have one thing. I don't think we say it enough. I'm really appreciative of Billy and Eric and the whole Parks and Rec staff. I think they do amazing things throughout the year and they definitely don't get enough credit for it. So I just want to make sure that I get a chance to tell you guys that I really appreciate all your hard work and your involvement with the community and everything we're trying to do. And from the deepest part of my heart, I really appreciate you guys. I really do. And I hope your staff knows that.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that.
Agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I need that. I can't handle this.
Feel sad.
Tell me what to do, not how. Just give me some direction. That's all.
Well, I think it speaks volumes to see you guys out though too. It's like, you know, when I'm out and around in town, I see you guys down at events and talking to people, and those sorts of things make a big difference for our community when they feel like they have people who are approachable that they can talk to and are visible. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Highlighter vests really help.
Yeah.
That too. I'll knit you some glow in the dark hats.
I will say our team cares.
Mhm. It's huge.
Get the best like that. Roast patch right there.
Put it right on the Patagonia.
Right over it, maybe.
Well, no, John's right, and all the functions, the park and plays, all the stuff that comes to those is nothing but patient and kind. Especially dealing with a lot of short people, like wow, they're really great, which means, that's coming from you guys, so thank you.
Yeah.
It's noticeable, they're so good with kids.
And parents.
Yeah, and parents.
Did we buy a screen?
So my other update,
I was wondering about that too.
when does it get here?
The check should go out tomorrow,
When we
and
start
then production will happen as soon as they have check in hand.
start building us a screen.
And how long is production on that? Do you know?
We're entering the holidays, so that's a really solid
Yeah.
question. Really, the only thing they need to produce is the actual screen. Everything else is them just purchasing it, cutting out some foam so that everything fits in its carrying cases. So really, the production shouldn't be that long. It's just they needed the money so they could order the hard cost
Right,
stuff,
yeah.
right? So it's how long is it gonna take for JBL to ship them the speakers? How long is it gonna take for them to get the computer and all that?
Okay.
So
Missed
Do-
that one for you.
Have we thought about kind of how you're gonna roll that out, like how you're gonna
Oh,
use
we
it for
have
first?
all the events already planned.
Yeah.
So we'll bring, once that's all in line, we'll bring
I wanna
that.
hear.
That's a Facebook post,
Bring that up.
right? A social
Yeah.
media post, gosh, we've got this coming, we're so excited, and we got stuff that we already have plans,
Yeah,
that's
we're
cool.
still working on our
Stuff going on.
full event year plan. We pretty much have it almost down. We just need to pair up with other town events to make sure that we're cross coordinating correctly before we put it out, but once we have that, we'll present it here for all the events.
Be awesome.
Movie on the dock, it's gonna be so cool.
really, it should fit, and I'm really just hoping it.
Could you use it for the, the high school playoff game, cause they were down in Pueblo?
That's so funny you said that. I was like, I wish we
That
had
day.
it. I wish we had it for the championship. So we could have done a screening.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the-
We
Party.
talked
A watch
about,
party,
we
exactly.
talked about
Watch
what
party.
licenses we need for watch parties like that, because we will have to have a license for movies and stuff, but
Yeah.
we've talked about that, like Bronco
That would've been cool,
playoff
right? That
games and
would've been fun,
like.
Lions
Like,
playoff
just-
game.
Right.
No, I thought you were going.
I mean, the Super Bowl.
We're actually in. We're actually
Super
in.
Bowl, yeah.
All sorts of fun stuff, like,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
I've got a couple ideas floating around in my head too, so
Bingo.
pick your brain.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have all the,
we have bingo, potential somewhat drive-in movies in the future, we've.
Oh, drive-
That would be sweet.
Driving would be cool.
Yeah, it would be really cool.
Just go all park over in the Ridley's parking lot. We'll do
Yeah.
it.
Right?
that'd be perfect.
Get the P.R.O.S.T spats in my right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it will fit on the new trailer, that would be
Totally
sweet,
could. And then it's elevated.
that's a good idea,
Sheesh.
just keep them coming, email me with ideas that you have. 'Cause we'll- Don't know if we can fit it in the first year, we still have to do, there's some cost recovery to it, and where we actually, how we actually roll it out, but we've got, I think,
I think you
at
should.
least 6 to 8 dates that we have
Yeah.
marked for it.
So fun.
That is great.
Okay, are we good to adjourn?
8:04.
Nice one.
Good job, everyone.
PROST.
PROST.